lot of people ask me what was the strongest hero or the strongest ability slash ultimate of all time in Overwatch. And while that definitely is an interesting discussion, I think one ability clearly made more people angry and uninstall Overwatch than ever before, and that's Hanzo's Scatter Arrow. Now we gotta turn back the clock before May 2008 to get to this ability. With a 10-second cooldown, this was an ability on Hanzo that when you shot it at a surface, they would all ricochet off, and each individual fragment of 6 would do 75 damage if it was fully charged. What this meant is you had a maximum 450 damage that when mastered or aimed at a large enough target, you would get the max amount of damage on a single person. Now, Hanzo can one-shot people, he still can, but with this Scatter Arrow, it gave you an easy way to one-shot people that just kind of existed. You didn't really have to hit a precise headshot, you just had to shoot near their feet, it bounced up, and because it's just so much damage, you didn't need every single fragment to hit, you just needed a small percentage, and you could kill pretty much any squishy in the game. Oftentimes, back when I used to play Hanzo, way back in Overwatch 1, I would have like a giant amount of kills with Scatter and then very little kills with anything else. So just raw damage with your primary fire and then get kills every 10 seconds is kind of how Hanzo played a lot of the time. Now, Scatter Arrow eventually got replaced by Storm Arrow, something that has a similar ricochet mechanic, and every once in a blue moon, you'll kill somebody with a ricochet with Storm Arrow, and people will type question mark and be generally annoyed that you died to that because it felt very RNG. But imagine if it wasn't. Imagine if you were inside any close corridor, a Scatter Arrow could just kill you out of nowhere, and that's what happened a lot in Overwatch 1. Especially when players started to get pretty decent at using Scatter Arrow. If you were ever inside a corridor running away, a Scatter Arrow could just fly through and then one of the 6 or maybe multiple ones would just hit you and kill you, and you felt like you had no counterplay because you were thoroughly away from the enemy and behind cover. Now, one of the worst things about Scatter Arrow is the fact that you can pre-charge a Scatter Arrow, climb a wall, and then shoot someone in the feet as you pop up to the high ground. We see this a lot today when players just get headshot when someone climbs a wall, but a headshot is much less reliable and very inconsistent unless you're a god. But with Scatter Arrow, it wasn't. In Scatter Arrow, you could just be minding your own business and a Hanzo could fly over the top and just insta-kill you out of nowhere, and you were definitely very, very tilted about it. Now, returning to the fact that Scatter did that 450 damage, which is a ton of damage, and up against a lot of the tanks in the game, if you just aimed it right at their feet, the Scatter would bounce up and hit all of them onto the target, so the max 450 damage. So a lot of tanks you could just kill straight up, but especially when you combine things like Damage Boost or Discord, you would 100 to 0 tanks at full health. Imagine today, you're minding your own business as a tank, and a Hanzo wall climbs the edge of a freaking wall, peeks you for a second, and insta-kills you. That was the life of what could happen with Scatter Arrow, and it was incredibly powerful as a way to burst down tanks, and probably a bit too strong because you could just delete people, any person, every 10 seconds if you had any teammate that was helping to damage boost you. Now, even if we combine all this, it wasn't enough to make this ability all that frustrating. The big frustrating part is that it was a little bit too easy to use. Oftentimes, you didn't really have to aim all that much with Scatter Arrow. While there were certainly levels to what people could bring to the table when you mastered this ability, it was just far too easy to get value. And like I said, relatively bad Hanzos like myself would get value only with Scatter Arrow and no other aspect of Hanzo's kit, but that was enough to oftentimes carry many, many games, and it was very frustrating being on the receiving end of getting scattered over and over and over again. And I think Hanzo has always had this problem where he's presumed to either get value too easily or get value based on RNG, which I don't necessarily think is fair to Hanzos that actually try to develop their aim on the character and their tactics behind what they do. But Storm Arrow seems like just a much, much weaker version of Scatter Arrow while still maintaining some amount of that RNG. I think it would be better off for Hanzo to replace that ability with something that provides more utility and takes them away from the identity as a I'm feeling lucky type of hero. Definitely something that I think they could push him further from if they were going to get rid of Scatter Arrow in the first place. Might as well just change his identity altogether around getting random kills with bounce shots here and there. Now, there was actually another replacement for Scatter Arrow that was in development called Piercing Arrow, and this was going to be a fast arrow that went through barriers and enemies. It was too unfun to play against, though, and didn't make the cut. Yeah, it seems like having an ability that one-shots or an ability that ignores all defensive positions and abilities seems a bit frustrating. Maybe let's give them utility in a different way. Now, on May 3rd, 2018, this was patched out forever. No more scatter arrow, although it did make a return in the Cupid event, and it was fun to mess around with for a limited amount of time. But there are many that still pine for the ability to one-shot roadhogs and deny tracers every single game. But if you enjoyed the content, let me know in the comments down below. Smash the like, subscribe, and let me know what piece of history you want me to cover next. Thank you so much for coming by, and I'll see you next time.